This clip is from Breezy Politics. After this, we'll get right into the show.
They lied. Okay. They said
Saddam is seeking and is working and is advancing towards the development of nuclear weapons. No question whatsoever.
they lied.
Okay.
They said there were weapons of mass destruction. There were none, and they knew there were none. There were no weapons of mass
Okay,
destruction.
all right.
No question whatsoever.
Look, bottom line, there were no weapons of mass destruction. They said there are weapons of mass destruction.
If you take out Saddam, I guarantee you that it will have enormous positive reverberations on the region.
Going into Iraq may have been the worst decision anybody has made, any president has made in the history of this country. That's how bad it is, okay?
We should have never been in Iraq.
I guarantee you, no question whatsoever.
Hey, what's up, guys? This is Mansplaining Mike with the Mansplaining Mike Show, the show where wokeness comes to die. And today, we're going to take a look at this plane crash that happened and see what we think we're going on. Could there be anything nefarious behind it? CNN supposedly reported about it 5 hours before it happened. How would they be privy to this information? Was it a military operation? After all, it was a Black Hawk helicopter. What was in the helicopter? I heard it was one that prioritized getting things from place to place. What was the thing that it was supposed to get, and where was it going? Why was this helicopter involved? Why wasn't it listening to the air traffic controller? We have evidence of that too. Could it have been foul play from a foreign country? We'll take a look at that as well, guys. That and more. Anyway, guys, let's get into it and see what we think. It could be our government agents that turned against us. Somebody who was recently fired from the military. We're going to take a look at all the aspects of it. Anyway, guys, let's go.
So does anyone want to explain how or why CNN was able to report this plane crash 5 and 6 hours before it happened? What? See the timestamp? 10:43 p.m. 5 hours before it happened? 6 hours before it happened? What? So I'm not military, so I don't really know exactly what this means, but I've heard that the call sign on the helicopter was PAT 25, which I guess means priority air transport. So what was in that helicopter and who was on that plane? Those are my first two questions. Along with, I don't know, this suspicious activity. Something's happening. Once again, red flags left and right.
Yeah, guys, that's crazy. How could something like that be reported 5 hours before it happens? How did they know? Were they privy to some information? Was it dropped off to them by somebody in the military? Could General Milley have put it in the call? We know that he's gone against Trump a few different times. Could the Democrats be using him as a way to influence a war and push their agenda of World War III and population control? I don't know, guys. It's really weird, some of this stuff that's happening. It's weird that these guys weren't listening to the air traffic control at the time of the crash and that they were having to repeat themselves. And it just didn't seem like they were responding. You guys will see that and more in this video.
Street Golf clear for runway 23.
22 Golf, you're not even tracking the localizer. I need you to fly. It's actually cancel approach clearance, climb and maintain 3000. 22 Golf.
3000 Golf.
Maintain 3000. Low altitude alert, minimum vector and altitude in your area 2800.
Climbing 22 Golf.
Raider 47, you're over hill, cleared BOR or TAC and Alpha approach to Brown.
The zero, taking Alpha approach to Brown, Raider 47.
22 Golf, climb and maintain 3800.
3800, group. Approach left 1176, 9.8 for 6000.
Last 1176, approach, roger. 22 Golf, turn right, heading 090, re-vectors to final.
0902 Golf.
American 408, descend and maintain 5000.
Go down to 5000, American 408.
Air 9er Hotel Juliet, reduce speed to 210.
10, Horn Air Hotel Juliet, cover that.
Raider 47, contact Brown Tower 128.25.
Tower 12825, Raider 47, thanks, good night.
Good day. Air 22 Golf, turn right heading 090, climb immediately, maintain 4,000.
1,000, climbing immediately. 22 Golf.
Okay, it looks like you're descending, sir. I need to make sure you are climbing, not descending.
Golf is climbing.
Lost 1176 at Cloman, join the track of the RNF Mike, but maintain 6,000 for traffic.
Join the track at Cloman, maintain 6,000, last 176. SoCal Delta 2913, 12,000, we have information, Quebec.
Air 22 Golf, stay altitude.
2,500 to the Golf.
Air 22 Golf, low altitude alert. Climb immediately. Climb the airplane, maintain 5,000. Expedite climb. Climb the airplane, please.
Man, guys, that was crazy. They just weren't listening for some reason. It was like those guys were poorly trained or something. Or, that doesn't make much sense. They were U.S. military. How could they be poorly trained? I mean, these are the best pilots available. These guys are trained for wartime situations. Or did Joe Biden put us in such a bad position that our military doesn't understand how to listen to air traffic control? I mean, I hope he didn't weaken us that bad, guys. But that was a pretty bad 4 years. Could some of those DEI hires that are being fired, could they have gotten angry that maybe their cross-dressing boyfriend who they want to marry one day and call their wife might be getting fired or something? I mean, we know that sissy stuff been going on in the military ever since the Bushes. Like, they said, don't ask, don't tell. It's been downhill ever since, just a little bit at a time. They wrote some morals and get rid of a little more with every chance that they get, guys. That's how communists work.
American 472, Washington, 1 star, 32017. Did you see that?
Fire Command. The accident happened in the river. Both the helicopter and the plane crashed in the river.
Yeah. They're close to it.
First and most importantly, I'd like to express our deep sorrow about these events. This is a difficult day for all of us at American Airlines.
We are now at a point where we are switching from a rescue operation to a recovery operation. At this point, we don't believe there are any survivors from this accident.
64 people on the American Airlines plane and 3 people on the military helicopter.
You could have slowed down the helicopter substantially. You could have stopped the helicopter. You could have gone up. You could have gone down. You could have gone straight up, straight down. You could have turned. You could have done a million different maneuvers. The FAA website shows that the agency's guidance on diversity hiring were last updated on March 23rd of 22. They wanted to make it even more so. And then I came in, and I assume maybe this is the reason.
I mean, guys, at the end of the day, do you really think some men with military training, even if the men were sissified or were on hormone blockers, wouldn't have known that there was an airplane flying right next to it? I mean, come on, guys. I don't care how bad you think these DEI hires are. They're trained for combat. There's no way they didn't see that plane coming. I might be the only one who puts it like that. I might be the only one who calls it out for what it is. But I'm telling you right now, they knew that there was a plane there. There's no way that they've been flying helicopters in battle situations and they don't know when there's a huge plane. I mean, this is a passenger airliner. This isn't a jet. A jet would be smaller. Maybe the jet would be louder. I'm not sure, but they would definitely be able to see a airplane. They tried using night vision goggles as a reason why they couldn't see the airplane. That just makes it so you can see better at night. You would definitely see the airplane with night vision goggles on. I mean, all of it just doesn't sound realistic. I mean, like I said, these men were trained for battle situations. They're going to know damn well if there's an airplane heading towards them in a helicopter, I mean, how wouldn't they know that? It's obvious, and there was 3 of them, so all 3 of them didn't notice the helicopter. I doubt all 3 of them would have been wearing night vision glasses at the same time in the helicopter, because they wouldn't all have been looking out the window. I mean, it wouldn't have made any sense. And why did they have night vision goggles on in the first place if they're just doing routine package drop-offs or dropping off high security items like was told in that video we just saw? I mean, it just doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And guys, let's take a look at this next video clip right here. This one is of an unmanned helicopter. I mean, imagine if it was BlackRock or Vanguard or somebody like that with Larry Fink money. What if they're behind it all? I mean, we know that Donald Trump went really tough on those World Economic Forum people at Davos. Could they have their hand in it? I mean, we know that BlackRock is basically just the military of Davos. They're controlled by Davos. They're always at the World Economic Forum anyway, guys. And who the hell thought it was a good idea for us to have these corporate militaries in the United States? Like, they're run by corporations and Wall Street, basically. I mean, they're bought off by who? The bankers. The bankers have their own military now, guys. It's called BlackRock. Anyway, let's take a look at this self-flying helicopter. If we think BlackRock could have got their hands on one of these, maybe it was this all along. I mean, there's no proof that there was anybody in the helicopter that I know of.
Your eyes are not playing tricks on you. There's no pilot inside this helicopter. It's 2022, so let's face it, we're used to seeing all types of vehicles operate themselves. From cars to boats, drones, even motorcycles. But some people might say there's something a little ominous about seeing a military-grade helicopter flying without a pilot. This is part of a project from Lockheed Martin's subsidiary, Sikorsky, and DARPA. Now, if you're not familiar with DARPA, it's a research and development agency for the US Department of Defense. And according to DARPA, this marked the first time a Black Hawk helicopter flew without anyone on board. It took off, flew for 30 minutes over a US Army base in Kentucky before safely landing on its own. So what made this possible? It's called ALIAS, an acronym for Air Crew Labor in Cockpit Automation System. And to find out how it works, I caught up with Sikorsky's Director of Innovations, Igor Cherepinski.
The way you sort of program this machine isn't by putting in waypoints like you would with a drone. This isn't fly here, 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 and there. You're actually explaining a mission. There's a language that was developed where you're telling the aircraft, hey, I have a cargo mission. And there's a set of cargo over here, and it's this kind of cargo, and it needs to end up over there. And this is when I need it. And then the aircraft goes out, figures out what the flight rules are, what the winds are, and shows you a plan to say, hey, here's how I would do this. And you, again, as a human being, have the final authority to modify it. But machines doing a lot of that, intermediate thinking sort of thing for you. This is inherently what's known as a fly-by-wire system, where mechanical controls were completely removed from the aircraft. So even in piloted mode, the pilots are flying the same computer, if you will, that's flying the aircraft when no one's on board. And that makes this aircraft easy to fly. I could teach you to fly this aircraft in 15 minutes.
Now, Igor was very clear when I talked to him. This isn't any sort of artificial intelligence. The system relies on cameras, sensors, and algorithms to identify and then avoid obstacles. And this wasn't the first time we've seen ALIAS in action. DARPA demonstrated it last year in a supervised test with a safety pilot on board.
Engaging autonomous auto start. Autonomous takeoff.
So I had to ask a question that a lot of you are probably thinking. If helicopters can fly their own missions now, are we on a path to making pilots obsolete? Well, Igor pointed out a lot of what pilots do is more than just flying.
medevac pilots, right? They aren't just there to fly a helicopter. They're there to figure out how to get into, let's say, a crash scene and pick up a casualty. And that's creativity, right? That's understanding the context of what they're seeing, being able to understand, level of emergency and other things. In that mission context, flying the actual machine should be only, let's say, 10 to 20% of what they do. What happens in reality, that percentage goes up as the environment gets worse, right? Rain, snow, bad weather, really complex, traffic scenes. What we're trying to do is augment the pilot to the point where flying the aircraft is really only 10% of what they do, and 90% they're focused on the mission.
Now, Igor says they've got more testing planned for this year and are looking at expanding Alias to other aircraft. One of the places they see opportunities is firefighting, specifically at night when flying can be more difficult. And yes, Sikorsky is talking to the US military to explore ways they can fit this tech onto military aircraft. But what do you think? Where do you think this technology can fit onto other vehicles? Let me know in those comments below. As always, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to CNET for more like it. I'm Andy Altman, and I will see you in the future.
Well, I'll tell you what I think. I think that sounds like it would be a completely plausible reason why this happened. I mean, just think about that. If it was a computer program driving that plane and the computer got confused and just ran itself into the plane some type of way. Or maybe it was done on purpose remotely. Maybe there was nobody from the military on the plane. And the people they say piloting it were just piloting it remotely. I mean, who knows? There's all types of possibility, guys. But we can look more into it and see what we think. I mean, that's what I think we should do, is not count on the answer being easy to find. There could be a lot of different reasons that we think this happened. And I guess we're just going to try to pick the best one. This is from a guy who calls himself Beauty Marked. Let's see what he has to say.
Believe that a Black Hawk helicopter collided with an American Airlines flight in DC's most monitored and secure airspace. An American Eagle flight that was en route from Wichita, Kansas. Does anybody know about what's happening in Kansas right now? A major Cheburka, what outbreak? Putting that aside, I just so happened to track the helicopter's path as well before you were unable to all of a sudden. And boy, did I discover a lot of very interesting information, but we'll get to that here in a second. Do you know how many Russians alone were on that flight? And do keep in mind, no one is believed to actually have survived that mid-air collision. But I really shouldn't have to say much more considering they were Russian personnel. Now let's keep in mind, there has been reported to be 3 US military personnel that were on board that helicopter. No names have been released as of yet, but this is the really interesting part. When you were able to track the helicopter's flight path, it just so happened to originate from a very specific address. Now, I'm not necessarily sure that I can name out an address on TikTok without receiving a violation, so I'm going to be putting it in the comment section below. But the current owners are the Embassy of Saudi Arabia. And when I noticed that, my instant reaction was, what? What is a Black Hawk helicopter doing taking off from that location? And does anybody remember the Las Vegas incident? Because if you don't, and you haven't gone down that rabbit hole already, I highly suggest that you do. Or you can watch one very specific video from an individual named Ian Carroll on X. You probably already know who he is. His name is Cancel This Clothing Company on TikTok. Because he actually did a full rundown on everything that you need to know about it. And if you watch that video, then you obviously know why I'm mentioning that incident. But there are numerous Saudi Arabian diplomats and scholars residing at that address. And like I stated, I'm going to be putting it in the comment section below so you can actually go check that out for yourself.
Well, I mean, it sounds completely like what we're talking about. I mean, he's saying maybe Saudi Arabia was involved. Or maybe somebody's trying to make it seem like Saudi Arabia was involved. Maybe they want us in a war with Saudi Arabia. I mean, we look at a lot of different things we'll be taking a look at. Like right now, we're going to take a look at maybe General Milley might have had something to do with it. I mean, he was constantly undermining Trump. It would make sense that he would try to use his military connections to get some revenge. I mean, Trump just pulled his security clearance. General Milley doesn't seem to be taking it well. Could he have something to do with all of this, guys? I don't know. Let's take a look and see what we think.
The U.S. Department of Justice for details of a reported meeting between Attorney General Merrick Garland and Joint Chiefs of Staff Chairman General Mark Milley. During the meeting, Milley and Garland reportedly discussed President Trump. General Milley reportedly pressured Garland to target American, quote, far-right militia movements. The meeting was first reported by journalist Bob Woodward in his new book, War. Woodward writes that in early 2021, Garland and Milley met for lunch at the Department of Justice. Milley pressured the Attorney General to investigate domestic threats and far-right militia groups. Woodward described the meeting as highly unusual, if not unprecedented. Judicial Watch sued after the Justice Department failed to respond to an October 2024 FOIA request for records about the lunch meeting. Judicial Watch President Tom Fitton had this to say.
General Milley and Garland's reported meeting about targeting President Trump and other American citizens further demonstrates the Biden administration was and is at odds with the foundational principles of our constitutional republic, and that the Justice Department would flout FOIA law to hide the details of this conspiracy meeting speaks volumes about its contempt for the rule of law.
President Joe Biden is reportedly considering granting General Milley a wide-ranging preemptive pardon, similar to the pardon granted to President Biden's son, Hunter.
Isn't that something crazy? A preemptive pardon. I think a lot of the pardons Joe Biden was trying to write, I think they're illegal. Because he was trying to pardon people for crimes they haven't even committed yet, almost, is what it seemed like to me when I read them. I mean, maybe I interpreted it wrong. I doubt it, but, I mean, it's possible. Sometimes that happens, especially with long legal documents. Everybody sometimes will misinterpret something and have to go back and read it again. But as far as I know, I think he gave some people pardons for crimes they haven't even been committed yet. So I don't know that that's even legal to do. I mean, pardoning yourself for a crime that hasn't been discovered, or pardoning someone else for a crime they haven't already admitted to, that seems like it's pretty much walking a thin line. I mean, I'm not saying that maybe it's not possible that a president could do that. I'm just saying it doesn't seem like it to me. But we'll see what happens in the future. The Supreme Court always has time to reverse rulings. And I just heard that Russia was actually putting out an arrest warrant for Dr. Fauci. So who knows? Maybe Dr. Fauci might get extradited to Russia to get some justice. We'll see what happens in the future, guys. I mean, it'll be interesting to see. But let's see some more information about General Mark Milley. I'm getting carried off on a tangent. I apologize. I have to cover that on another show. But let's get into this.
Did you or did you not tell him that if we were going to attack, you would let him know?
As part of that conversation, I said, General Lee, there's not going to be a war, there's not going to be an attack between great powers. And if there was, the tensions would build up. There'd be calls going back and forth from all kinds of senior officials. I said, hell, General Lee, I'll probably give you a call, but we're not going to attack you. Trust me, we're not going to attack you. These are two great powers, and I am doing my best to transmit the president's intent, President Trump's intent, to ensure that the American people are protected from an incident that could escalate.
I understand your intent, but I think you articulating that you would tell him, you would give him a call, I think is worthy of your resignation. I just think that's against our country, that you would give our number one adversary that information and tell him that.
Now, what's so serious about this? This is not a political issue. This is a constitutional issue. You know what protects us from ever having a military coup in this country? Civilian control of the military. The commander-in-chief is the president, a civilian. And here we have an instance of the highest ranking uniformed officer in the United States undermining the commander-in-chief by colluding and coordinating with a potential adversary. So this is a constitutional violation. It's a violation of his oath to the Constitution, but it also is treacherous. It puts in danger our national security. I imagine the Chinese left that phone call and said to themselves, there's instability in America. Imagine if they would have decided now is the time to invade Taiwan because there's political instability in the chain of command. This is treacherous. It was dangerous. It's unconstitutional. And General Milley needs to answer questions about it, because is this true? He should be fired. He should be fired, and he should have to face military justice for what he's done.
China's not an enemy.
Whoa. I agree, guys. This guy's really out here really trying to go behind Donald Trump's back and talk to foreign adversaries, telling them he'll warn them in advance of what Donald Trump wants to do. Who does this guy think he is? He's serving at the will and behest of the president. Everybody in the military is. The president is the commander-in-chief at the end of the day. It's the military's job to protect him, listen to him, and follow his demands and follow through with his orders. Not do things like talk to the enemy and tell them you're going to give them a heads up if we're coming for them. That's insane. Let's see what else General Milley's been doing. This guy is a nut job.
What's your take on women in combat in the military? Yay or nay?
Women have been in combat, and it doesn't matter if that 7.62 hits you in the chest. No one gives a if it's a woman or a guy who pulled that trigger. You're still dead. So if you meet the standards, our military must be and always should be a standards-based, merit-based military, period, full stop. It doesn't matter if you're white, if you're black, if you're a man, if you're a woman, if you're a Catholic, if you're a Protestant. None of those identification things matter. What matters are standards, readiness standards. Do you meet the standard or not? If yes, pass go, collect 200, join the infantry.
What's your take on...
Yeah, as long as they're held to the same standard. See, that's what's funny about this type of stuff with all this DEI. And it's been going on for a long time. I mean, ever since we've been letting women into the military, pretty much, they've been held to a different standard than the men. And it's really not fair, guys. Because at the end of the day, they need to be able to protect their brother, just like a man to be able to do. And if they can't, they're putting you at a disadvantage. And I'm not saying women couldn't be good at it. I mean, there's women who could probably shoot better than men. I mean, shooting is a sport that really does have equality. If you go to a target range, there's a lot of women who will outperform a lot of men. That's like the one sport where everything is equal. But it's not equal when you're on a battlefield and you got to keep up with everybody and the pressure is on and you don't have testosterone that calms you. I mean, it might sound sexist coming from me, but my name's Mansplaining Mike. I don't really give a shit. Anyway, guys, let's keep going and see what else we can get into and who else might want to do this type of stuff. Here you can see that Trump got rid of these people, these DEI hires. Could one of them be angry? I mean, it's really good that Donald Trump got in and we can get rid of some of these DEI hires. All of it doesn't have to do with like gender and their sexuality either. I mean, look what happens when this guy gets called out. And this doesn't have anything to do with the military. This is just the FAA. But this has a lot to do with why those crashes might happen if you think about it. I mean, I think this is what Donald Trump blamed it on at the end of the day. He was saying it was DEI hires. I'm just showing you other things that it could also be besides DEI hires. Was it just one last shot to get even before you get kicked out? I don't know, guys, but let's see what happens when you have DEI in the FAA in positions of power like that.
So, Mr. Washington, can you quickly tell me what airspace requires an ADS-B transponder?
Not sure I can answer that question right now.
That's okay. We'll just keep going. So that's a pretty important part. So what are the 6 types of special use airspace that protect this national security that appear on FAA charts?
Sorry, Senator, I cannot answer that question.
Okay, so what are the operational limitations of a pilot flying under basic med?
Senator, I'm not a pilot, so...
but obviously you'd oversee the Federal Aviation Administration, so any idea what those restrictions are under basic med, quickly?
Well, some of the restrictions I think would be high blood pressure. Some of them would be...
It's more like how many passengers per airplane, how many pounds in different categories, and what altitude you can fly under. So, and then amount of knots. It's under 250 knots. So,
that sounds like you should know that if you're head of the FAA. You don't know simple things that just meant to keep people and passengers safe. Holy crap! And who would think that this guy is qualified for this job? That had to be DEI. It's absolutely ridiculous. This guy doesn't seem like he would be qualified to be a grocery store manager.
It's not have anything to do with blood pressure. So can you tell me what causes an aircraft to spin or to stall?
Again, Senator, I'm not a pilot.
Okay, let's keep going. What are the 3 aircraft certifications the FAA requires as part of the manufacturing process? Quickly, please. 3 aircraft certifications.
Again, what I would say to that is that one of my first priorities would be to fully implement that Certification Act and report.
You know the 3 types, Mr. Washington? 3 types. Okay. Yeah, that's type certificate, production certificate, and airworthiness certificate. Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. Let's just keep going, see if we can get lucky here. So can you tell me what the minimum separation distance is for landing and departing airliners during the daytime, Mr. Washington?
I don't want to guess on that, Senator.
Are you familiar with the difference between Part 107 and Part 44809 when it comes to unmanned aerial standards? Unmanned like drones. Are you familiar with the difference?
Yes.
Okay. You know the difference between those two, Part 44809 and Part 107? Do you know the difference there?
No, I cannot.
That's okay.
Oh, he didn't know anything that was asked, and those all seem like some pretty important questions, guys. It's crazy they don't know what's being asked of them, and they're in positions of power, in positions that put our lives at risk or our safety at risk, or it could put our safety in good hands if they're in good hands, but at this point, it doesn't look like they were in very good hands there at all. Oh, one of my posts got removed. That's not surprising. I thought Facebook said they were going to be more for free speech. I guess not. Anyway, guys, let's keep going and see what else we can come across. No, this was Donald Trump at the World Economic Forum, pissing off Klaus Schwab and those sissies. You think any of them might have something to do with it?
My administration has taken action to abolish all discriminatory diversity, equity, and inclusion nonsense. And these are policies that were absolute nonsense throughout the government and the private sector. With the recent yet somewhat unexpected great Supreme Court decision just made, America will once again become a merit-based country. You have to hear that word, merit-based country. And I've made it official, an official policy of the United States, that there are only two genders, male and female. And we will have no men participating in women's sports, and transgender operations, which became the rage, will occur very rarely.
That needs to happen. They shouldn't occur ever. I mean, just to be honest with you. At what point should we say, hey, no, man, we're not going to let you mutilate yourself. Instead, you're going to go to this hospital, and they're going to try to figure out what's mentally going on with you. And if we can't figure it out, you're just going to have to sit in there for a while. I mean, it's really getting crazy, guys, all this DEI crap.
Corporate elites gathered in Davos, Switzerland at the World Economic Forum to plan the future for the rest of humanity. Their scheme, which they call the Great Reset, will drain what's ever left in your bank account and strip mine the beleaguered middle class of its remaining equity. During COVID, the WEF actually dictated the lockdowns that shifted $4 trillion upward to this new oligarchy of corporate billionaires. The bankers, the investment houses scooped up our homes, advertising that you will own nothing and be happy. They have a plan, but my plan is to stop them. I've spent a career as an attorney fighting these corporate robber barons in court. I know how they work. I'm familiar with their impulses to commoditize our lands, our waters, our homes, even our children, and our workers and our public health. I've proven that I can beat them again and again and again and derail their schemes. They spend billions in advertising and propaganda to make us feel powerless. But they've underestimated the power of we the people. When you donate to my campaign now, whether it's $1 or $5 or $100, you're letting them know that we're not going to take it anymore.
Man, could that be part of it? Could they be mad that Kennedy is going to be the Secretary of Health? I mean, if Donald Trump gets his way, I mean, he's going to take a lot of money out of the World Economic Forum hands. I mean, imagine that. If he goes after all those vaccine industries and they lose money. I mean, Donald Trump is putting them in a bad situation, isn't he? Could it be them? Could they be behind it? I mean, after all, they control people all over the place. Let's take a look at who else we think this could have been, or other reasons we think it could have been the World Economic Forum, or people at Davos, or the Democrats in general, who just don't really seem to want Trump to have power like he does.
Countries, or you're going to be tariffed. That's the message to the Mexicans. To the Canadians, start spending on security at the northern border and pay your 2% to NATO and stop sending fentanyl from China over the border into the United States, or you're going to face tariffs. That's the signal there. To the Germans, if you don't start making more cars in America, we're going to tariff the you-know-what out of your cars coming here. And on and on for each country. It's the tariff signal, if you want to call it that, is a negotiating leverage tool because Trump is commands the largest market on Earth. There's no market larger than the United States. For China, it's a whole different kettle of fish. We're in an economic war with China countries.
I mean, look at that, guys. Those are more people that are mad at us. Could they somehow have influenced somebody to turn on us? Or somebody to try to put Trump in a bad situation? I mean, the possibilities are endless, guys. Could it have been Israel? Take a look at what Israel did to the USS Liberty. I talked about it in the previous show. I went pretty deep dive into it. And here's Candace Owens. She did a deep dive into it too. And hers was more readily available for the show. So let's get into what Candace Owens figured out about the USS Liberty and what Israel did to our ships for sabotage. And that was to get us into a war. We know the Ukrainians and the Israelis are real close. Some of them would say they share the same DNA, especially Zelensky. He happens to be one of those Ashkenazi guys that, would be in Israel probably if he wasn't the president of Ukraine. And I mean, he was a DEI type guy too. He was sissified and doing gay dances. He goes along with the LGBTQ stuff too. Maybe Zelensky was mad about the attack on the DEI stuff, or maybe Zelensky just wants us to turn on Russia, so crashing a helicopter into a plane full of Russian nationalists, that could be a reason for Russia to get mad and try to attack. I mean, they got to defend their men. Anyway, guys, let's get into it, see what we think.
All right, you guys, I'll get right into this. A couple of weeks ago, I received a letter that changed my life, certainly changed the course of my life in politics, and I'm going to read you that letter now and let you know that the author of it is sitting across from me. It reads, "My name is Philip Turney. I am 77 years old today. On June 8th, 1967, I was just 20 years old when the gallant crew of the USS Liberty was savagely attacked. Our American flag was proudly flying on our ship in the Mediterranean Sea that day. The designation AGTR-5 was clearly painted on the bow, port, and starboard sides. USS Liberty was written in English on her stern. When we arrived on June 7th, we were overflown by Israeli reconnaissance aircraft, and the same activity was repeated on the morning of June 8th. We were positively identified as American and friendly by the IDF. We had requested a destroyer escort long before we entered the Mediterranean, but we were denied twice. Our captain assured us that we were clearly marked as American and we therefore had nothing to fear. We were alone, 12.5 miles off the coast of the Sinai Peninsula, always in international waters. The Israeli reconnaissance aircraft were clearly marked with the Star of David. We therefore felt secure, seeing a flying boxcar and other smaller recon propeller aircraft taking good care of us. The attack began at 2 o'clock on a beautiful, bright, sunny day by French-made Mirage and Mistral jets painted black with no markings. We had no clue who was attacking us, but assumed it was an Arab state. During the first pass-by, the jets took out all but one of our transmitting antennas, as well as every watertight door above the waterline. The air attack lasted about 25 minutes, killing and maiming our firefighters and any sailor who moved. Our radio man took one antenna offline, so it wasn't transmitting and wasn't hit. He ran a long wire to it, and the SOS went out to the 6th Fleet. It was even picked up as far away as Vietnam. Rockstar, Rockstar, under attack by an unknown jet aircraft. Help us, help us. Captain Tully, skipper of the USS Saratoga, sent jets to come to our aid. Before the jets hit the horizon, they were recalled by Secretary of Defense Robert McNamara. Captain Engen of the USS America and Tully relaunched more aircraft to aid us. They were also recalled, this time by Lyndon Baines Johnson himself. He said, quote, "I don't care about a few dead sailors. I will not embarrass my ally, Israel. Return to base immediately," end quote. How did he know who was attacking us if we did not? We were set up by our own government to let a foreign government have their way with us. The IDF even dropped napalm on the bridge of our ship. How low they would go, we would soon find out. 3 motor torpedo boats headed our way and 1 torpedo hit our starboard side. We saw the Star of David on the boats. They were there to sink us. The attack continued for another hour and a half. Attacking jet aircraft destroyed all but 3 of our life rafts, which we had put overboard. We were going to place our most seriously wounded in them so that they would have a chance at life. But the IDF would have none of that. They shot 2 of them out of the water and took one aboard their boats as a trophy of the kill. They continued shooting and killing my mates. They left and we thought that it was over, but it wasn't. IDF helicopters were sent with troops armed and ready to board our ship and finish us off. Then they just left. I guess the gig was up when the mighty IDF could not sink our defenseless ship. When it was all done, there were over 821 rocket and cannon holes and over 5,000 armor-piercing bullets riddling the ship. Napalm was burning us up, and a 40 by 40 foot torpedo hole was in her side, causing the ship to list badly to our starboard side. We then waited 17 hours for help. I guess they hoped that we would sink that night. Help was only 40 minutes away from us, but they left us out alone to die. When the USS America and the USS Davis arrived to help us, they took our wounded to care for them. Their wounds were so horrific, words cannot explain. Admiral Kidd boarded our ship a few days later, and the cover-up immediately began. We were ordered to never speak of the attack to anyone, not even with one another. Penalties would be fines, imprisonment, or worse, and we all knew that worse meant death. We have been treated like garbage for the last 57 years. Congress has been bought and paid for, with the exception, over the years, of a few brave lawmakers. Their names are Representatives Pete McCloskey, Paul Finley, and Jim Traficant. As the courageous Rep. Thomas Massey has noted, all Republican members of Congress except for him have AIPAC handlers. We can assume this is also true of nearly all Democrats. We are the most decorated ship in naval history for a single engagement. I believe God saved us that day to allow us to communicate the truth of this attack to leaders like you. We give all power to Jesus Christ. We are just his servants that horrible day and now. The USS Liberty survivors are the biggest whistleblowers this country has ever seen. We have been smeared as anti-Semitic, Jew haters, and Nazis. Our only sin is that we survived. We didn't kill anyone. Israel did all the murdering that day, and the U.S. government did all the covering up. I'm asking you to help us save America by telling others the facts about the slaughter of my mates. We are begging you to support us. Respectfully, Phil Turney, the president of the USS Liberty Veterans Association.
Man, that's horrible, guys. Our government covered up their crimes. I mean, can you
All right, you
imagine
guys, I'll get right into this.
how that must feel to be somebody who fought for this country, and this country fighting to cover up a crime from a supposed ally on you and your crew? I mean, they lost their best friends, their brothers in arms. I mean, that's got to be a horrible feeling. You gave your life up to defend this country, and this country stabbed them in the back like that. That's horrible, guys. And what did they do it for? Another country? Another country came before our military. I can't imagine how that must have felt. And then here's Israel again, doing more sick type of stuff. This was Benjamin Netanyahu getting us into the Iraq war. Lying about weapons of mass destruction. Lying about how it would make Iran feel. Just telling lies after lies after lies. Anyway, guys, let's get into it. That's all this guy can do is lie.
Saddam's regime, I guarantee you that it will have enormous positive reverberations on the region. And I think that people sitting right next door in Iran, young people, and many others will say, the time of such regimes, of such despots, is gone. There is a new age. Something new is happening.
And that is speculation on your part, or you have some evidence to that effect?
I was asked the same question in 1986. I had written a book in which I had said that the way to deal with terrorist regimes, well, with terror, was to deal with the terrorist regimes. And the way to deal with the terrorist regimes, among other things, was to apply military force against them.
The way we did in Afghanistan.
The way, for example, I want to answer your question.
Well, I guess I'm running out of time, so I quickly was trying to get there. We've done, I think, what you proposed in Afghanistan, yet I haven't seen that sort of neighborhood effect.
Well, I think there's been an enormous effect. The effect was we were told that there would be a contrary effect. First of all, people said that there would be tens of thousands of people streaming into Afghanistan, zealots who would be outraged by America's action, and this would produce a counter-reaction in the Arab world.
But I think you're now saying that when you take an action like we did in Afghanistan, we're going to see all the other countries just fold.
No, what we saw is something else. First of all, we saw everybody streaming out of Afghanistan. The second thing we saw is all the Arab countries and many Muslim countries trying to side with America, trying to be okay with America. The application of power is the most important thing in winning the war on terrorism. If I had to say, what are the three principles of winning the war on terror? It's like, what are the three principles of real estate, the three L's, location, location, location? The three principles of winning the war on terror are the three W's, winning, winning, and winning. The more victories you amass, the easier the next victory becomes. The first victory in Afghanistan makes the second victory in Iraq that much easier. The second victory in Iraq will make the third victory that much easier too, but it may change the nature of achieving that victory. If you take out Saddam...
He's talking about first, second, third. How many wars does this guy think we're going to get into? And for what? For his country. These wars aren't benefiting us. How is any of these wars benefiting us? It's absolutely crazy. We're so far away from the Middle East, those people aren't thinking about attacking us, and if they did, we'd see them coming from thousands of miles away. Literally, guys, this is ridiculous. The only reason we're over there in any of these countries fighting any wars is to try to create some state that ought not be existing. I mean, a state just only for Jewish people. I mean, that wouldn't be allowed in a state here. You couldn't have a Jewish-only state. That would be called segregation. And we're supposed to stay out of these type of religious wars. We have a separation of religion and state. It's written in our Constitution, guys. We're violating our Constitution for this crap. This is about the Levant affair. This is another attack Israel perpetrated against American citizens, or at least they tried to, in order to get us into a war with Egypt. I mean, these guys aren't really good at this type of stuff. They're always getting caught, and our government is always covering it up. For example, you weren't taught any of this in school classes. I think I might have known about it because I went to a military academy, and I mean, this type of stuff you learn about. But most people don't learn this stuff. Most people don't know about it unless if they're looking for it. I mean, there's a lot of people who do know about it. These are the people who look into conspiracy theories and stuff like that. I mean, conspiracy facts, to be honest, they all end up coming true. Wait until you hear about this and see if you trust the media after you hear it. The media never talks about it.
I agree, false flag operations are absolutely insane. So, back in the year 1954, Israel was a bit uncomfortable with its neighbor, Egypt. And they feared that the British leaving the Suez Canal would lead to a rise in Egyptian nationalism which could harm their border. So they came up with a plan. Named after the Israeli Prime Minister Lavin, the Lavin Affair was a false flag operation in which Israeli operatives would plant bombs all across Egypt. The bombs would be planted in American and British-owned businesses. And what Israel hoped would happen is that after the bombs exploded, the British would actually increase their military presence in Egypt, thereby reducing it as a threat. But this did not work. So as an example of one of the bombings, what they used were explosive books. Specifically, operatives would use books that had acid and nitroglycerin in them. As the acid ate through the books, it would reach the nitroglycerin, causing them to explode after hours in libraries. Unfortunately for the Israelis, one of their operatives was caught outside of the Rio Theater and the bomb...
That's sick stuff. That's why people accuse them of poisoning the well. If you don't know about that, they call it anti-Semitic. It's probably something you should look into, because usually when something is called anti-Semitic nowadays, it's to cover up a truth about something that had happened in the past. I mean, if you guys aren't scared of being called anti-Semitic for doing some research, I would suggest you look into why people say and accuse them of poisoning the well. I mean, it's kind of what they did with those pagers they sent over there to Lebanon, ain't it? I mean, at least that was targeted. It wasn't like they killed a bunch of women and children going after those guys.
Bomb went off in his pocket. Some members of the cell managed to escape, but most were caught and committed suicide or were executed. I agree, false flag operations are absolutely insane. So, back in the year 1954...
I mean, it's crazy, guys. You would think that false flag was something insane, but then when you look back at false flag operations, you understand where they come from. And if the CIA is covering up stuff like this, and our media is covering stuff up like this, what else are they covering up that we ought to be knowing about? I mean, just here in the United States. They're doing it for other countries. You think they wouldn't do it to people here in this country? I mean, the media gets weaponized against our politicians. And when it gets weaponized against the citizens of this country, does anybody speak up against it? We'll talk about that in the next episode. But for right now, let's stay on topic. Could Israel have something to do with this? Could they have paid somebody or influenced somebody in the CIA to reach out to a military friend of theirs or reach out to someone in BlackRock? I mean, the possibilities seem to get endless and endless. And if you head down these rabbit holes, you'll see why. Wait until you hear about the Sayanim. I mean, these guys work straight for the Mossad, directly with the Mossad. But they're in like 5,000 in each one of these major cities, it seems like, in America and in countries abroad. Just wait until you hear about this stuff, guys. It's insane. I had to do a deeper dive into it. This was just a video I found here on X. So, anyway, guys, check it out. This was from Hurricane Zekline. So, let's see what he had out here, guys. This was a really good video.
Are tens of thousands of people, Jews, Zionists, who are members probably of the Bnei Brit, for instance. Bnei Brit is the Jewish masonry, who occupy high level in all the societies. I mean, you can imagine 5,000 Sayanim in New York, only in the business area. 5,000 Sayanim in Los Angeles, in the production area, in the artistic area. And you can, in France, in London, you can imagine 1,000 Sayanim in the medias. You can imagine, and they receive orders from the Mossad, from a department of the Mossad called the War Department.
S-A-Y-A-N-I-M. Sayanim. S-A-Y-A-N-I-M. Sayanim. S-A-Y-A-N-I-M. Sayanim. S-A-Y-A-N-I-M. Sayanim.
And they work for the Mossad. It means that all these people who have their work, who work normally, they are citizens. I mean, they work in a bank, they are political.
When you go to these city council meetings and you experience Steinberg, right? He's the mayor, I believe.
They are political.
Daryl Steinberg, right?
S-A-Y-A-N-I-M. Sayanim. S-A-Y-A-N-I-M. Sayanim. S-A-Y-A-N-I-M. Sayanim. S-A-Y-A-N-I-M. Sayanim.
When you experience him, cutting you off, calling you hateful, do you believe that he is naive and genuinely thinks you're hateful, or do you think that there is a more deceptive purpose in his speech?
His wife is a preacher at B'nai B'rith, which is one of the international organizations which the Jews have all over America, possibly all over the world, to further Jewish ideals.
All over the world, in Europe, in New York.
S-A-Y-A-N-I-M. Sayanim. S-A-Y-A-N-I-M. Sayanim. S-A-Y-A-N-I-M. Sayanim. S-A-Y-A-N-I-M. Sayanim.
When the Mossad call them and tell them, look, I need an information, and this is the work of the Sayanim.
Whoa, guys, that's crazy. The Sayanim have members all around the United States cities and globally. Reporting back to what they call their war room? Isn't that crazy, guys? The Sayanim. They're spying on us and reporting back to their guys in Israel, the Mossad. It's not surprising at all. I mean, look at what they've been doing in the past. Blowing up the USS Liberty, getting us into the Iraq War, lying about weapons of mass destruction. I mean, it's all been crazy, guys. The Levant affair, trying to get us into wars with Egypt. Could they be trying to get us into a war with Russia? Would it be surprising if they were? Could they have their hands in BlackRock's pocket? Are they giving BlackRock money? Are they paying them off? Is BlackRock loyal to us, or would they be loyal to Israel? Would they be loyal to the banking class or the citizens? They're a private enterprise, guys. They're private military. I think they'd be more liable to take up for whoever's giving them their paycheck. And those happen to be the bankers, who happen to be the Zionists. I mean, it's just facts, guys. The Rothschilds control the world at the end of the day. Seems like they control us here in America, too. But anyway, guys, I hope I was able to go deeper on this show and touch on things that other people who are covering this topic haven't touched on. It took me a while to figure out how I wanted to put a show like this together. I didn't want to just report that there was a plane crash. I wanted to look into it and see who I thought it could be, and then share that with you guys, because I thought it's cool to come at it from a different angle. Everybody was already reporting the plane crash, but nobody was talking about who might be responsible for it. I mean, I seen Trump do it when he was talking about the DEI hires, and that's a possibility too. Could just be a DEI hire who made a mistake. I really doubt that though, guys. But anyways, this was the Mansplaining Mike Show. I hope you enjoyed the show. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And share this with some sissy liberal who will cry about it for the next 16 years or something like that. Who knows how long they'll cry for it. Those guys are always crying about something. That's all they do. I'll catch you guys on the next one. I'm out.